The night they threw me out, it was 38 degrees. I had a duffel bag, a dying phone, and no idea that in a few months, I would dismantle everything they had ever tried to build, using nothing but patience, documentation, and the truth. My name is Maya. I'm 22 years old. I'm writing this from a studio apartment with a mattress on the floor, a 3.6 GPA, and a story I've never told from beginning to end. Until now. I was 17 when I came downstairs one ordinary Tuesday morning and found my dad's side of the driveway empty. No note. No goodbye. Just absence. I walked through every room the way you do when you can't quite believe what you're not seeing. His closet, cleared. The garage wall where he'd kept his tools organized for 20 years, bare. And the hallway where a photo of the two of us used to hang, just a nail and a dark rectangle where the frame used to live. My mom, Patricia, was sitting at the kitchen table. Not crying. Just sitting. A mug of coffee she wasn't drinking. When I asked where Dad was, she said 2 words. He's gone. Like she was reading the weather. My little brother Tyler was 14. He didn't even notice Dad was missing for 3 days. Tyler was always Mom's favorite, the one she lit up for, bragged about, never missed a game. Me? I was the one who kept the house running. The one who got nods instead of thank yous. After Dad vanished, I became the household. I paid attention to things. And about 3 weeks later, I was up late when I heard Mom in the kitchen, laughing. Not the hollow performance of a grieving wife. A real laugh. Warm, private, low. The kind reserved for someone specific. When she heard me, she went silent mid-sentence. Said it was work stuff. At 11 p.m. on a Thursday. I filed it away. 8 weeks after Dad disappeared, Mom sat me and Tyler down and told us, smiling. Actually smiling, that she was getting married. To a man named Victor. 8 weeks. You don't go from catatonic to bridal in 8 weeks unless the story started long before the math suggests. I had Victor figured out in 30 seconds. Early 50s. Leased Audi he talked about like a personality. Regional director at a medical device company. The kind of man who controlled a room without raising his voice. And from day one, he wanted me gone. When Mom was watching, Victor was flawless. Attentive, warm, textbook stepfather performance. But the moment she left the room, that mask dropped like a curtain. He'd look at me like I was a problem he was actively solving. It started with comments. I wasn't adjusting to the new dynamic. I needed a different attitude in his house. His house. The house my father had paid the mortgage on for 16 years. But I stayed quiet. Tyler was stable. Mom was functioning again. I had 6 months until graduation. I could outlast this. Then came the wedding night. The reception had barely ended. Paper plates still on the folding tables. Tyler asleep on the couch. Victor pulled Mom into the hallway, and I heard every word through the kitchen wall. His voice was low, methodical. Hers was uncertain, and then agreeable. 20 minutes later, Mom called me into the living room. She stood next to Victor, his hand on the small of her back like a stabilizer keeping her upright. She told me they had decided it would be best for everyone if I found my own living situation. I waited for her to laugh. She didn't. Victor leaned forward like he was running a quarterly review. I was creating friction. My resistance to the family structure was stressing their marriage. Then he said it. This isn't a discussion. You have until Sunday. After that, you're trespassing on private property, and I'll handle it accordingly. Trespassing. In my own home. I looked at my mother. She wasn't avoiding my eyes. She was holding them, deliberately, clearly, and she wanted me to know she had made a choice. That was the whole conversation. I went to my room. Packed clothes, my laptop, chargers, a few books. And the watch my dad gave me for my 16th birthday, a Citizen Eco Drive with an engraving on the back. Build something, Dad. I almost left it. Something about carrying a gift from a man who had abandoned me felt wrong. But at the last second, I shoved it in my bag. Couldn't explain why. I walked out the front door at 11:40 p.m. November. 38 degrees. Thin jacket. Phone at 9%. Nobody came after me. The only person who picked up was my Aunt Renee, my dad's older sister. Mom had been quietly cutting off Dad's entire side of the family for months. Blocked numbers, declined invitations, redirected mail. A clean amputation. But Renee didn't hesitate. She told me to come over. When I showed up at her door close to midnight looking like I hadn't slept in a week, she pulled me inside without a single question and made up the guest room. I made myself as small as possible. Ate less than I needed. Showered fast. Kept my stuff in the duffel bag like I might need to leave at any moment. Renee noticed. She started leaving protein bars on my nightstand without saying a word. That hit me harder than anything Victor ever said to me. I re-enrolled myself for my final semester. 45 minutes each way on the bus. 4 hours of sleep. Gas station coffee. I got a job at a diner off the state highway, $12.50 an hour plus tips, which on a Tuesday lunch shift meant about $11 in crumpled singles from retirees. I mopped floors. Cleared tables. Took daily grief from a line cook whose entire vocabulary was insults and spatula gestures. Then Victor found me. He called the diner directly. Told my manager I was an unstable young woman going through a mental health crisis who shouldn't be trusted near kitchen equipment. My manager didn't fire me, but he cut my hours in half while he sorted it out. That cost me nearly $400 in 2 weeks. I spent 3 days eating nothing but bread the cook tossed me during my shifts. I was operating on a margin so thin that a single parking ticket would have broken me. 6 weeks into diner life, my phone rang. Unknown number. The voice was calm. Precise. Completely unexpected. He introduced himself as my father's attorney. My hand tightened on the phone so hard the case creaked. My father, the man who had vanished without a word, who had left me to catch every falling piece, wanted to meet. I almost hung up. But the part of me that needed answers was louder than the part that wanted to slam the door. So I went. Dad was already in the conference room when I arrived. He looked like someone had run him through a time-lapse set to decay. 20 pounds lighter. More gray. His hands trembled on the table, and his eyes were wet before either of us spoke. I sat across from him, arms crossed, jaw set. He started talking, messy, unscripted, stumbling. He apologized so many times the word lost its shape. But he also said specific things. He knew my shift schedule at the diner. He knew I'd been taking the 45-minute bus route. He had been watching my life while doing exactly nothing to help. That broke something in me. And then he told me the truth. 7 months before he left, he had been diagnosed. Stage 4. Caught late. The doctors were talking months, not years. He said he left because he couldn't watch his children watch him fall apart. That disappearing clean was merciful. The logic was insane. You don't protect people by vanishing. You don't prevent pain by creating a worse kind of pain. But I could see it in his face, he believed it completely. He had received the worst news of his life, and his first instinct was to shield us. Delusional. But it came from something real. Then he told me the part that made everything click. Before he left, he discovered that Mom and Victor had been together, not after he disappeared, not in some ambiguous gray zone, but for months. While Dad was sitting in oncology waiting rooms being told how long he had left, she was already building her next life. And when he confronted her, she pivoted. She told him his illness would complicate the family. That it would be easier for the kids if he stepped aside quietly. She convinced a dying man, a man at his absolute lowest, that his family was better off without him. He packed a bag. He left. And Victor moved in before Dad's scent had faded from the pillowcases. Then my dad's attorney laid out what came next. Despite everything, Dad had been working remotely through treatment, consulting in logistics and supply chain management. Smart investments, 20+ years of careful financial decisions. He had been building a financial structure from his hospital bed. And he wanted it to go to me. A trust fund. Managed by the attorney's firm. A monthly living stipend. Full college tuition. And a reserve that unlocked at 25. Structured with one rule. No co-signers, no family access, no one but me and the trustee with authority over a single dollar. I signed the paperwork. I shook the attorney's hand. I looked at my father one last time. He was crying quietly, not for himself. I hugged him, and I could feel how much he needed it. I sat in my car in the parking garage for nearly an hour without starting the engine. I moved into my own studio apartment within 2 weeks. 380 square feet. A kitchenette that was more of a concept than a room. A window overlooking a tire shop. But my name was on the lease. My key in the lock. That first night, lying on a mattress on the floor, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not peace exactly. Just quiet. Like my brain finally stopped running threat assessments. Then they started. 10 days after I moved in, someone attempted to open a credit card in my name using my social security number. The application was flagged and denied because the address listed didn't match mine. It matched Mom and Victor's house. I froze my credit with all 3 bureaus within the hour. 2 weeks later, Tyler texted me a photo of a document. Said Mom needed my signature for a school registration form. It wasn't a school form. Buried in the middle was a general power of attorney template, partially filled in, with my mother's name as the designated agent. Cleaner formatting than before. Letterhead close to the real school districts. But hereby grant full authority to manage financial, legal, and medical decisions is not how a school enrollment form reads. They were learning from their mistakes. That scared me more than the first attempt. I screenshotted everything. Forwarded it to my attorney. Didn't respond to Tyler. Then came the bank. Someone tried to initiate an electronic transfer using credentials that were almost correct, but not quite right. The bank's fraud department caught it and locked everything. Standard procedure. Except standard procedure meant I spent an entire day with zero access to my money. Couldn't buy groceries. Couldn't put gas in the car. I spent that day broke and furious. Then it got personal. I was studying for a midterm when there was a knock at my door. The authoritative 3-hit kind that makes your stomach drop. 2 police officers. They'd received a call from a concerned family member reporting I was a danger to myself and living in unstable conditions. They asked to come in. I cooperated. Showed them the apartment. Clean. Organized. Textbooks on the desk. One officer looked around and you could see him doing the math. This doesn't match the call. They left with a case reference number. But my landlord had seen the squad car. He called that evening and made it very clear that one more visit, and he'd find a reason to end my lease. I spent an hour on the phone auditioning to keep the apartment I was already paying for on time every month. I told my attorney everything. He added it to the file. Then came the meeting I had been waiting for. Victor called. Said it was about Tyler, about family stuff that needed to be discussed in person. I agreed to meet at a coffee shop the next day. I walked in expecting Victor alone. Mom, Victor, and Tyler were all in a corner booth. Ambush, of course. Victor performed beautifully. Said he'd been insecure. Said he'd projected his baggage onto me. Said he'd done real work on himself. Same function. Better delivery. Then came the ask. He wanted to adopt me, legally, to formalize the family and correct the mistake of pushing me out. And then he said the sentence that stripped away every pretense in the room. This is really about protecting the family's assets and making sure everyone is taken care of. The family's assets. My trust fund, set up by my dying father, funded by his work, managed by his attorney, and Victor just called it the family's assets. He didn't want to be my father. He wanted to be my access code. I let the silence sit. I need to think about it, I said, calm and neutral. Then I left. But not before I did something deliberate. On my way out, I stopped and said casually, almost as an afterthought. Oh, my attorney's office set up a new email portal for trust-related correspondence. If anyone needs to reach out about paperwork, they can use that. I gave Mom a carefully constructed email address. A dead inbox that existed for exactly one purpose, to see who would use it. It took Victor 11 days. My attorney's office logged an email from a Gmail account registered under a slight misspelling of my name. Close enough to be confusing, different enough to be deniable. The email, written in stiff legalish language, claimed to be from a family representative and requested a meeting about beneficiary coordination. The attorney's paralegal traced the account's recovery email to an address associated with Victor's LinkedIn profile. Not a burner. Not a throwaway. Victor's own digital footprint. 2 clicks deep. My attorney's file was now complete. 6 documented incidents. The credit card application using my social security number, traced to their address. The forged power of attorney, created on their home network. The bank transfer attempt. The false police wellness check. The decoy email traced directly to Victor's profile. And Mom's visit to my college registrar, where she tried to access my records until campus security walked her out. Every single one a criminal offense on its own. Together, a pattern so clean it practically filed itself. My attorney had also filed a formal compliance inquiry with Victor's employer, not accusations, but documented concern. In his industry, compliance doesn't play. A pattern of fraud was enough to trigger an internal review. Then I arranged the meeting. Their house. Their turf. I wanted them relaxed, confident, thinking I'd finally come around. I knocked on the door of the house I used to call home. Mom opened it. I watched her face move from surprised, to confused, to scared. And then land on a forced, hopeful smile as she noticed my attorney standing beside me. She let us in. Victor was already in the living room, feet planted, projecting authority. "Glad you came," he said. "Knew you'd come around." I didn't sit. "There aren't next steps," I said. "There are consequences." My attorney opened his briefcase and laid out every single document, methodically. The credit fraud. The forged POA. The bank transfer. The false police report. The decoy email. The registrar incident. And then, almost as an aside, he mentioned that a compliance inquiry had been filed with Victor's employer 3 weeks prior. Victor's face changed for the first time. Not panic. Recognition. And then, I swear this wasn't staged, his phone buzzed on the side table. He glanced at the screen. I watched the color leave his face in real time. The compliance department had delivered. Mom started crying. Said she didn't know. Didn't know about the credit card. Didn't know about the emails. You didn't know Dad was dying either, I said. You didn't know Victor was manipulating you into throwing out your own daughter. That's a lot of not knowing for someone who always seemed to know exactly what she wanted. She went still. The script had ended and she didn't have the next page. I said what I came to say. You're not adopting me. You're not accessing the trust. You're not getting a single dollar. The compliance inquiry is active. The police report has a case number. A cease and desist arrives by certified mail this week. If anyone, either of you, or anyone acting on your behalf, contacts my attorney or approaches me about the trust, we file criminal charges. Identity theft. Fraud. Forgery. Then I turned to Tyler. He was curled in the corner of the couch, knees pulled up, trying to make himself invisible. 15 years old and trapped in the middle of something he never asked for. "Hey," I said, softer. "None of this is your fault. You know that?" He looked up at me, and for the first time, he didn't look like a kid reciting someone else's script. He looked like a kid who was finally hearing something meant for him. "They told me you left because you didn't want to be around us," he whispered. "I didn't leave," I said. "I was told to go." There's a difference. When you're old enough to see all of it clearly, call me. I'll pick up. Victor reached for Tyler's shoulder. Tyler flinched away. Small movement. But I saw it. And Victor saw that I saw it. My attorney and I walked out. The cease and desist arrived 4 days later, signed for by Victor himself. 2 weeks after our meeting, he was placed on administrative leave. The compliance investigation, once opened, found other things. Padded mileage. Double-billed client events. Minor on their own, invisible without a microscope already on him. But that's what happens when you give investigators a reason to look. By month's end, Victor was out. Mutually agreed separation. Corporate language for, they let him resign before it went public. No severance. No reference letter. In an industry where your name is your resume, he was now the man who got quietly pushed out under a regulatory cloud. One last move, he called the trust administrator's office directly. The receptionist recognized his voice and said 5 words. "This call is being recorded." He hung up. That was the last contact anyone in that household made with my legal team. Some doors don't close with a slam. They close with a click. I visited Dad 3 times a week at the care facility. Some days we talked. Other days we just sat together. We were rebuilding something slow and careful, 2 people who had both been abandoned by the same woman in different ways, trying to figure out what remained. One afternoon, he pulled up his investment portfolio on a tablet and walked me through 20 years of financial decisions. Entry points. Risk tolerance. Why he'd held certain positions and sold others. A masterclass delivered from a hospital bed. Money is a tool, he said. Not an identity. Don't confuse the two. I'm transferring to State University in the fall. Business administration. Minor in finance. Turns out watching your dying father outperform the market from a hospital room teaches you more than any classroom will. GPA is 3.6. Not bad for a girl who was scraping grease off diner floors 18 months ago. And Tyler, the offer still stands. When he's ready, I'll pick up. But I'm done chasing anyone. Not for love. Not for family. Not for anything. That version of me is gone. They threw me out when I had nothing. They came crawling back when I had something. Funny how that works. If this story hit you somewhere deep, if you've ever been underestimated, discarded, or taken for granted by the people who were supposed to protect you, then you already know, the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to disappear. If you want more stories like Maya's, real, raw, and unfiltered, hit that subscribe button right now. Every story we share is someone's truth, told the way it actually happened. And if this one moved you, drop a comment below. Tell us what moment got you. Because these stories are only worth telling if someone is there to hear them. Subscribe. Comment. Share. We'll be here.